session. May I request Masamba Thioe, Mr. Masamba Thioe, who is the project executive of UN Climate Change Global Innovation Hub, to give welcoming remarks and also outline his vision of UGIH. Thank you, Masamba.
Thank you, Nitin, and good afternoon to all of you. Warm welcome at the UN Climate Change Global Innovation Hub. My name is Masamba Choi. I'm the project executive of the UN Climate Change Global Innovation Hub, an initiative of the UNFCCC Secretariat launched at COP26 at Glasgow, so we have 2 years now, and with a one-fold vision. How do we mobilize innovation to serve the many people and the planet? And a twofold mission: how can we contribute in accelerating and upscaling the deployment of existing solution? And we mean by solution, technology solution, but also innovative policy, innovative financial instrument, innovative business model, an innovative cooperative approach also, as well as product from the culture and creative industry. And then the second component is how can we accelerate the development of the missing solution. And we have a threefold core value that are articulated around caring, sharing, and daring. Caring, because if you want to promote climate and sustainability innovation, we have to genuinely care for the needs and the well-being of the many people. And this is why we are really focusing on the core human needs. And our focus is how can we use innovation to facilitate the achievement of the core human needs while being aligned with the climate and sustainability goals. So we are working on nutrition and health, shelter, access to products and services, leisure, clothing, and education, as well as energy. And these are our 7 priorities of work, and this is why we are very much eager to have you here presenting how action at the education level can also contribute to the transition towards the future that we would like to build. And sharing, starting with the sharing of knowledge. This is very important, and this is why the Global Innovation Hub is promoting open source. Knowledge should be accessible to everybody, everywhere. We should not hide knowledge behind paywall. We need also to be able to share experience, and more importantly, to have a mindset of solution provider. It's not just about solving my own problem. If I'm a corporate, I'm a nation, or I'm a city, but this is more about how can I develop a solution that others can use to also solve their problem. And then we have the daring part, which is very important, and I think it's these 3 core values. We need to find a way to do our best so that the education system take them on board, and kids, when they are at the very low age at school, can also start integrating this type of value. So the daring part is very important, and this is one of the main challenges for climate and sustainability innovation. We are used to set goals and target on the basis of our perception of what is possible. And I understand why people are doing it. They are doing it because they want to be credible. If you are a CEO of a company, you would like, if you are in face of your board of directors, if they ask you, how will you manage to achieve your goal and your target, you would like to be able to articulate how you will do it by using solution A, B, and C that are accessible to you. But this is what is the main bottleneck for innovation. Goal and target should not be set based on our perception of what is possible, but based on what is needed. And it's precisely the gap between what is needed and what is currently possible that will be the driver for innovation. So we need to have this moonshot way of thinking where when we are setting goal and target, the focus is on what is needed, but not what is possible. By doing this, we can break the vicious circle in which you are locked if you do not have this moonshot way of thinking, because the problem is those that are setting goal and target will say, we can only set our goal and our target based on what is possible. And then those that are developing the solution will say, we can only develop solutions for which we have a demand. So the goal setter will not be ambitious, and the solution provider will not develop the transformative solutions that are required. To a large extent, the challenge of climate and sustainability is a challenge of behavior. It's also a challenge of mindset, and we will not be able to address the sustainable development goal if we do not act on the inner development goal. And it starts at school. So we need to be able to develop the emotional competence of the kids so that they have the right mindset and then have the right knowledge that will enable them to positively contribute, because they are the leader of tomorrow in driving the transition toward a world that can provide flourishing life to all and a world that is regenerative. So looking forward to your panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Masamba. So may I request the panelists now to come up on the podium?
Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome, and thank you for being here. Don't worry, my panelists are going to come soon, so don't worry about it. So my name is Dr. Faten Samara. I'm a professor of environmental sciences at the American University of Sharjah. I am also the co-chair of the UAE Climate Change Research Network, which was actually created by the Ministry of Climate Change and Environment here in the UAE. And this topic is certainly very close to my heart because as an educator for, I can say now, around 15 years, on environmental sciences, sustainability topics, as well as sort of trying to bridge that gap between policy, education, and research. This topic, I think, plays a lot of sense, and I'm really excited to share this with you. And I'm hoping that this panel can be a little bit of an interactive session, so maybe we can have that conversation, because I know that there is a lot of expertise in the room. So we're going to sit comfortably soon, but without any further ado, I'm going to introduce my panelists for today. So if I can call Mr. Sanuddin Abdulrahman, who's the CEO of the Planet Greeners in Carbon Knock Initiative. He's also a net zero enabler of educational institutions in the UAE. And if we can have you please come in. In addition, I would like to call in our next panelist, which is Mr. Wasim Youssef Bat, who's the Dean of the Habitat Group in the UAE. He also has, or his organization has gotten several Sharjah Sustainable Awards in the Winning Educational Group. And our last panelist, which is Ms. Basmala Rawash, who's the coordinator of Youth Care About Climate, different initiatives and research specialists in Egypt. Thank you very much. Maybe you can come to that side. All right, so thank you very much for being here, and thank you to all of our audience. So I guess I'm always dropping things. I'm so sorry. So just to talk a little bit about the topic in general, as time is progressing, we know that it is so important to not only introduce the idea of sustainability in the complete and global scale, but it is so important to also try to include it in our daily activities. So when we talk about human life, and we saw in our previous presentation how there are so many topics that are currently part of the challenge that we have when it comes to climate, when it comes to sustainability. But integrating that into the educational sector, that also becomes a major challenge because the way that it is done is slightly changing the mindset, right? We need to start thinking a little bit on a different perspective, and that's where I believe that innovation comes. Now we're looking for ways that we can incorporate that. In my experience in education, you have to really find ways that we can push the youth to look into those different topics. I mean, yesterday we had a panel in which we were talking about including the youth, and one of the interesting comments that one of the youngsters made was you need to find certain incentives for the young people to want to do something. And they an incentive can be related to not only getting a grade, but maybe getting a certificate, or maybe the idea that you're going to get something out of it because this is one planet and we need to protect it because otherwise you're going to be affected. So I want to hear a little bit from you, and I know that you've all had a lot of really good experiences in incorporating this within your sectors. So maybe I want to start a little bit with you, Mr. Abdurrahman. So the idea is that how do you think that we can integrate, and from your experience, and I know that what I've been told is that you're the pioneer actually in climate education, because at the time that nobody was yet talking about it, you already started talking about it. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience and why did it come to your mind?
Hi, my name is Sainuddin Abdurrahman. I'm representing Carbonok Climate Initiative, part of Planet Greeners. We are in the technical agriculture implementation in the UAE region and even the UAE. We are actually, in the, if you are talking about the agriculture in the education sector, not only the hands-on experience we are giving them, we are giving all the, we are conducting the seminars and hands-on experience for the education sector, especially in the students. Yeah. Actually, we started in 2013. It's called a SAFE project, Students Agriculture Venture for Environment. And the project was, once we talk about this, agriculture in the education sector, nobody was there. Okay, nobody was even talking about this. We just designed this project in 2013, and after that, 2016, it was recognized by the Ministry of Climate Change, and they awarded us for the SAFE project, and they want to implement it in even the private sector as well. Okay, once we asked them for help to implement this project in the private sector, but they simply, because it was a policy matter, they simply rejected, and they were insisting us to meet the private, the school management to getting the approval of this. Because this was our challenges once we started implementing this project in the education sector. But now we are very happy that we can see greening education and the agriculture in the education sector. All these we can see, and it is the latest motto of sustainability. This is what we can talk about the SAFE project and agriculture, sustainable agriculture in the education sector.
And I mean, certainly one of the biggest challenges, it is the idea of application. We can teach a lot of things in books and in text and in theory, but the application, it is what really teaches, and that's I think a better way for them to learn. And that's one of the comments that I heard yesterday from the youth, that we need to learn by doing. And I think that implementing the agriculture or the hands-on, that application, that certainly can give a big message, a huge message. I'll come back to you in a minute, I think, about this very interesting topic, because it seems like there was a little bit of a back up first from really applying this teaching techniques or this learning techniques, like you mentioned, do you think that maybe there was a reason that there was a little bit of that backup that no, you need to do it at the private sector or in the private way and not be something that is maybe included in the curriculum?
Actually, the private sector, why they are stepping down from the, the education, sustainable agriculture in the education sector because of, the financial part. Because, some of the schools, they are, the management should take the decision that they want to implement, the sustainable education, part in their in their studying for their students. Because there is some, there is some hitches that, sometime they don't have enough time to implement or integrated this program in their, the curriculum. This is also, we had facing the problem. So this was the major issues we were facing while we implementing this program in the education sector. Yes.
Yeah, very interesting. And I think that picking up on that, maybe Mr. Wasim can talk a little bit about it, because I know that that's one of the different perspectives or one of the different aspects that you were able to successfully do, right, to implement that idea in the curriculum. So if you can tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, thanks. Starting off from where Mr. left, he mentioned.
Yeah, I think you need to get it closer.
So there are some hitches, of course. I mean, that means whoever, whichever schools want to take up this, do so of their own initiative. There are not enough incentives, or it's not easy also. It requires a certain kind of investment of time and money to do this. But at Habitat Schools, we started early with this vision more than 10 years back. We are a group which is 2 decades old, but our sustainability path started more than 10 years back in 2014. And it included integrating the teaching of, it started off, the aspiration was that we wanted to connect students with the earth, with the processes of the earth, and have a practical hands-on experience. Especially so because our stakeholders, our students, our parents are mostly, they come from middle income rung, and therefore students typically do not have a lot of they do not have a lot of space available where they can experience nature. A lot of the time is spent inside apartments and inside buildings. So we looked to build a school that could be an experiential space, especially when it comes to talking about a connect with nature, sustainability practices, skilling students in the processes of nature. So we integrated farming in 2014 in the curriculum from grades 3 to 8. And we developed campuses that would facilitate this experience where we have green areas, we have planting of crops, our campuses are green, and we have greenhouses. So students learn both about the theory and practice of nature. But of course, it requires a certain willingness, a certain investment. You have to be invested in this, you have to believe in this. And the fact that we started off with a very small aspiration in 2014, but now Habitat Schools is here in this forum, in this discussing with key people, means that we have come quite some way. And we have been successful to some extent, and that is what we would like to talk and present about here, about our journey and what we have been able to do, but there are challenges as well.
Certainly, and I applaud you, certainly, because you're incorporating this within the education, and you mentioned the such important stages, which is starting with grade 3, which is when we need to really empower the youth. We need to empower them to be able to start thinking in that different perspective. And maybe you can add a little bit more on this, Basmala. So I know that you are an activist, an environmental activist, and that you also do a lot of movements empowering the youth. So can you give us a little bit of these examples of success that you have looked into that youth empowerment for climate action?
Thank you so much for the introduction. My name is Basmala Rawash. I got interested into the whole climate education thing about 4 years ago when I started university. And then I realized two key things. One, in the Middle East region, which I'll be focused on, specifically Egypt, not only youth, not a lot in general knew about climate change or were interested in general. And two, it was really, really difficult to have the significance of climate change reach these communities. And the thing is, you can't really blame them for not caring or for not looking at climate change as a detrimental issue when, again, within our region, we are plagued with poverty, with hunger, with conflict, with so much going on for us that we have to face since the day we've been born, basically. And this is when the innovation of youth initiatives really comes into place. We want the significance of climate change to reach these communities, but in order to have this reach them, we have to relate it to their struggles and we have to include them. The climate change as a topic has been thrown around as something that has been very gate-kept or very looked at as like a global thing, or only governments deal with it, or only the West deal with it. And this is when a lot of youth initiatives that I've worked on target. So, for example, I remember in my first year of university, we were sent out by the student activity to talk to people of very low income communities about climate change. And I remember one of the comments that really hit hard and stayed with me and inspired me till this day is a man told me that he would probably die of hunger before he dies of climate change, or before climate change even reaches them. And he's not wrong. He's not wrong when looking at the state. We might die of hunger, we might die of conflict, and climate change just seems so far away. And this is where empowerment and youth and this creativity that we have that I think lacks, or lacked at least, in the generations before us that had to do climate education came into place. So for example, a very, very just incredible initiative. It targeted specifically women of low-income communities, and in order to introduce them to climate change as a topic, we went to these women and told them, okay, so you want income generation. In order to do this, you could use sustainable agriculture, rooftop planting, and with this very slow introduction of climate change into their everyday work lives, they were able to then plant rooftops all over Cairo, produce fruits, produce vegetables, produce products that they were then able to sell. And this, it really implemented this topic of climate change into their minds, into their everyday lives. It educated them, but at the same time, reached to them through their struggles, and we solved an issue for them. Another initiative, for example, is communities that are in Luxor and Aswan in Egypt, which are very touristy areas. The topic of sustainable tourism or eco-friendly tourism, this is where we try to target. We wanted them to spread their culture, we wanted them to spread their industry. However, we wanted them to realize that there's a background of environmental conservation when it comes to the tourism industry, for example. Again, this generated income for them. They showed off their culture, they showed off their cities, but they kept in mind that the buildings they were building, the food they were cooking, the way they dealt with tourists in general, this was environmentally friendly, for example.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, and I think that this is where the innovation, in my point of view, comes into place. Innovation is not only artificial intelligence, right? It's not only technology, and I believe that we're always looking into technology to solve a lot of our problems. But you can go a little bit simpler than that, because if we think of legacy and we think about the past generations, they used to live very sustainably. The way that they live, the way that they did agriculture, even the way that they built was built in a way that they're getting the best shade, they're getting the best of the best wind, right? So can we learn from those lessons? And maybe this is something that you can think about. So because you started in this movement and in the climate education so early on, we're always looking to technology. And I can speak for my own example. I mean, my kids, that's what they're always looking at. But then maybe we need to sit and do a little pause and think about how can we really incorporate this transformation, this innovation, without necessarily looking into artificial intelligence or into technology, but going a little bit simpler.
Yeah. If you are talking about the technology in agriculture, sustainable agriculture, so we are implementing the, the latest technology in agriculture like aquaculture and, the hydroponic system. We are introducing all this latest technology to the students in the education sector. Why we are choosing the education sector for the sustainable, the transformation, or we are just transforming our knowledge to the society, because catch them from the early stage is the, the slogan. What we are following it, that we can, whatever we are transforming our knowledge and to the society, and the area of sustainability. Okay, so it's easy that we can transform in society and they can just adopt it. They are the future. This is the what we are choosing the education sector for the technology transformation. And if you come for the agriculture, because we are in the agriculture sector, and the latest technology we are using it not only for the education sector. This is our business, what we are doing as a private sector. But in the educational sector, the technology for the agriculture. Not only we are giving the technology for the agriculture, we are giving importance of water circulation. That gray water can be used to irrigation system in the schools areas. At the same time, we are introducing them for the reuse of the plastics, and whatever things is they can reuse it. It's good for the our environment. This is what we are educating them. Yes.
Yeah, and basically that's looking into the idea of the circular economy, right? You're trying to close this closed loop in which you're taking care of all the components. So I think that this is becoming such an important topic. I mean, if we think about sustainable ecosystems, we're also thinking of how we can not only build our farming, but we can also reuse our water, reuse the materials. And that is a sector that I think is becoming more and more important in the UAE. And I like that you were mentioning, all of you were mentioning the idea of looking into what is possible at the local perspective. So maybe, Wasim, you can talk a little bit about it, because when we say that we're teaching, and you mentioned something about a lot of the children that didn't really know their surroundings and what they can do here. I remember that the UN declared the year on biodiversity, and one of the comments that they put in their video was that a lot of the children couldn't recognize a bee from a wasp. And that is because a lot of the kids do not spend a lot of time outdoor. So can you talk a little bit about the challenges? And I know that you end your previous talk talking about challenges. So what are some of the challenges that we encounter to be able to incorporate these solutions or these innovations?
I think the biggest challenge is intent, that we have to take this seriously enough. We have to recognize that the time is now, and we cannot delay any further. That's the big challenge. That's a behavioral challenge. That's a challenge of the mind. You have to change the mind. And that is why we recognize this early on and realize that working with students is really a blessing. It's an opening, because they are so receptive. They're so open to learning, and through them we can target the wider community, parents and so on, and the wider school community. So the intention is both to show that the school can be a model of a sustainable community, and also at the same time effect behavioral changes among students and skill them also. As you said, if students go and plow the earth, they prune trees, and they plant seedlings, and they water the plants, they get to know about biodiversity. They get to know about one species and another species, and they know about the cycle of nature. So, in knowing just about how to grow a plant, how to take care of a plant, they know about a lot of how the earth works. This is the legacy we were trying to produce and to hand over to our young students who in a very short time will be decision makers very soon. So I think what we are trying to do is give them the best of this attitude, this openness, and this knowing that as the COP28 has shown, that the time to act, at the time to take the right decisions is now, and we cannot delay it any further.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to you, Basmal, and just because we're talking about COP28, right? And it seems like in this COP, there is a lot of focus on this idea of education as well. And coming from COP27, which was in Egypt, can you see a little bit more focus now being given towards the youth and having them as actually a change, them being a change and empowering the youth? And I can say that you're an example, right? Because you're young yourself and you're starting this movement. So do you see a change in the region?
Definitely 100%. I think, again, as you said, specifically in Egypt, once the concept of COP, it became a thing in the region, and once people started being introduced to climate change conferences, this itself gave the rise to the topic of climate change. And I think this gave as well the realization to policymakers and to stakeholders, whether private or public, that in order for such a topic to move forward, youth has to be included. We've seen a lot. So in COP27, there was the Omnia Omroni, who did an incredible job, not only as a very young person, but as a woman, and especially in the MENA region. Again, women are not the most publicized when it comes to change-making platforms. So that was an incredible development. This year, there's the Egyptian Youth Delegation, which again, an incredible development. Across universities, across schools, the importance of mobilizing students became such an important pillar of climate action in the country. Ministries, for example, the Ministry of Youth, Ministry of Environment, they themselves started releasing initiatives on youth inclusion and how to involve ages. And when I say youth, I don't only mean university students' age, but down from elementary school students. And that was actually where I started. I started all my work going to elementary school students and talking to them about climate change and including them and telling them, like, when you grow up, your careers, your jobs, this will be integrated within climate change. And I don't want to speak for the entire region, but with 2 COPs happening consecutively in the region, I think I've seen a lot more Middle Eastern youth, Middle Eastern women, Middle Eastern, just young people all over, just generally have their voice heard. And not only Middle Eastern, but Global South youth in general have been, and I believe for this entire COP, the highest voices and the biggest change makers have been the youth, who have been calling for so much, who have been calling for climate justice, who have been calling for the end of an occupation, who have been calling for just so much that the big adult policymakers have been too scared to call for. So definitely, and I'm incredibly proud and incredibly honored to be somehow representative of a Middle Eastern youthful voice, because I'm such a tiny, tiny little pick in the millions and hundreds of millions of Middle Eastern youth who have been working so tirelessly in order to prove their voice in this.
Absolutely, and I think that you should be so proud of yourself, because certainly what you're doing, you think it's a very tiny component, but it is not. It goes a very long way. And I can see this in the youth, and absolutely, as you mentioned, the Middle Eastern and the MENA region in general, I think we're waking up and everybody's trying to really get advanced into that action. I mean, I can see that in the UAE. The UAE now having the youth, right, and having a minister of youth for the first time who's a female as well. I think that is a huge empowerment. I can see how we're also empowering the youth. I mean, as part of the Climate Change Research Network, we announced a new youth division, and the main idea from this youth division, it is that we will be teaming up youngsters with researchers, faculty, other experts that have been in the field for a very long time, so they can learn from the experience. But the way that I see it is that also it's a two-way street. And I say this in my courses all the time, that I learn from them as much as they learn from me. Because as time passes, we see things in a complete different way, and you really learn. And as an educator, you do really learn from what these younger people have to say, and the way that they also visualize things, because it's completely different. And certainly, I think that we need to also empower that action, empower the fact that, yes, we've been here for a little bit longer, but that doesn't mean that we know everything and that we have the answers. And certainly when you're speaking, I can see that. I can see that the way that maybe we should be looking into it. Now, if we look at social media, right? That is a way that we're empowering the youth, and the way that they're teaching us as well. So so certainly this is an amazing topic, but I want to get back and a little bit go back to you into the idea of, you're talking about these different innovations, hydroponics, and so on. How important it is that we implement this type of technology, not only in the industrial capacity, but also that could be implemented within the homes, that maybe children can learn this and then take it back home, so then they can implement all of these new innovations.
Actually, hydroponics or aquaponics is not a new innovations. It's already exists in the market, but we are introducing the existing innovations and technology to the coming generation, and let them learn it from there. And we are expecting, the next level from them. So, we have to just introducing them all these technologies. This is what our idea into the education sector.
Absolutely, and I know that soon enough I'm going to ask Wasim to actually present. He has a few slides that you're going to be presenting for us, but before we go into that, and you will be talking to us about maybe some of the best practices in the region.
Yeah.
So I'll ask you in a minute to go into that, but maybe I'll get the mic back to you before we go into that idea. So how do you think that we can move on from now? What do you think our next steps are, Basmalla?
This is a very difficult question. I think we are now at a very positive stage that we can definitely use forward. What I've seen happening specifically at this COP, or well, not this COP, but like in COPs in general, are majority of youth are observers. And I don't think I've seen much youth really involved in the bits of negotiations as they should be. Again, have our voices been heard? Definitely a lot more than they have been before. But I believe that we could definitely contribute so much more when it comes to the official negotiation decision-making process. And again, youth negotiators are there, but their participation has not yet been matched to the actual decision-making process and participation and decision-making of the other main country delegations, for example. This is when it comes to COP. In other manners, the governmental sectors, so the UAE does give very positive examples of youth inclusion, but I don't think that that has been showcased in a lot of other governments across the Middle East. A lot of the times we see a minister of youth, definitely not a youth, speaking on behalf of us. And well, again, positive developments. There have been initiatives that have been coming out of governments. I think that across the Middle East, with us being such a marginalized group of people, I believe that we could take such a much bigger part when it comes to the policy-making process within our countries. And yeah.
Yes, certainly. Maybe you can tell us a little bit. Where do you think that we should go next? What is our next steps?
I think, as I said, that we are in an imminent situation, and the next step should be that we should be more ambitious. That it will not do with what has been going on, and we cannot continue with this because from all of what science is telling us, we're coming close to a tipping point. And if we do not step back, if we do not know how to stop certain things or phase out certain things, then it's going to be too late, if not for us, for the coming generation. So it's a very serious thing. So it's about time, and it's about time each of us in our capacity, wherever we are, need to be more ambitious with what we are doing. At Habitat Schools, we've already we were about green schools and sustainability for a long time, but now we've scaled up, we've jumped the ladder, and now we're looking at net zero for our schools. We've already started these projects, and for any other new projects that we might have, and we are looking at various angles. We are looking at transport, we are looking at school campus design, materials, uniforms. We're looking at everything connected to schools, how it can contribute to a net zero agenda. That's the ambition everyone needs to have, not because because it's absolutely needed now.
And I completely agree with you. I believe that ambition is such a key point. We need to be ambitious, but at the same time, we need to understand really what is that our setting is requesting from us. What is that in the local context we can do, and how to expand it. Absolutely. We need to learn, and we need to lead by example. We have a lot of countries here within the region that have already shown us that it is possible to do it. Then we need to try and follow those as our example and not use examples that are too far from us. I believe that we have globalized in a way, but at the same time, we need to understand what is the local context. What is that works for us? Yes, we're enhancing our agricultural systems, but at the same time, is that the most viable option? So I do believe, I do talk about this all the time, that we really need to understand what is our context like and what is our resources that are available. And I know that, Wasim, you have some best practices that you wanted to present to us. So before I open the floor for questions, maybe we can go through those. So if we can get, you have a presentation, right?
Yeah.
So if we can get that on. Yeah, there is. Please.
Yeah. So do I sit here and do it? Okay.
Yeah, this is it, right?
Yeah.
Here's
This is the presentation. So this is a very short presentation. As I said, we started off with a very small aspiration 10 years back in 2014. And that aspiration was there before that also. It was to connect students to nature. From that aspiration, where we've come to a point where we want to present Habitat Schools as a model of a sustainable school community in the UAE and in the wider region. That's what the intention of these few slides is, to showcase that. So we call it let's call it the Habitat model. These are our students in our on-campus farms. As I already said, we firmly believe that we need to work with students. Is because we need to leave a lasting legacy. We need to right now work on behavioral change. If we need to push this agenda, and why schools and why students is because schools speak to the wider community in a way that I think or schools or generally educational institutions speak to the wider community in a way that others do not. Students can speak and appeal to others in a way that others cannot. Students are young people. So therefore we believe in this, and that's why we closely work with students for this. Sustainability is something that we have pushed since before 2014, and we continue to do this. These are just some images of our schools in our on-campus farms, doing farming and learning about sustainable practices. Just some elements of what we call the habitat model, or is that we have campuses that are sustainably designed campuses, open green corridors, outdoor classrooms, teaching practices that focus on skilling students in sustainability. I mentioned that we have farming classes from grade 3 to 8. Farming classes and fieldwork yielding locally grown produce on campus. So we produce a lot of, not commercial quantities, but quite a bit of locally grown produce on campus. We focus a lot on carbon sequestration on campus with our green cover, with the kind of trees and plants we have planted in the campus. So just one calculation for one of our largest campuses, it's around 10 acres, is the amount of carbon sequestration we've been able to achieve is 3498 kilograms per year. There's more than 3.5 tons, close to 3.5. Reinforcing circularity, reduce, reuse, recycle. This is part of behavioral change which we try to inculcate in our staff, in our students. Lower energy use through specially built spaces, use of, and other initiatives that I'll be talking about. A frequent planting campaigns is a feature of Habitat schools. And we have a very strong focus on tech and coding, but also we integrate sustainability with it so that students do tech and coding, but with sustainability objectives or aims in mind. So these are just some elements of the Habitat model. These are just some pictures to showcase what I was talking about. It's an open campus, it's a green campus, open corridors. We use much less energy than other typical buildings, school buildings in the UAE. Outdoor classes, this is a very frequent feature of our schools, that whenever the weather permits, which is now, we do a lot of outdoor classes. Among other things, it reduces energy use and also enables classes in a very environment-friendly ambience. Renewable energy, lowering our dependence on fossil fuels. We've started use of EVs and we've implemented solar projects in our schools. Just a small look at one solar energy project that we implemented in our school. Just some, because we mentioned that there are some challenges, some hitches, just to look at some of those issues. So for example, this particular project has around 1,400 panels, and the per day average generation is supposed to be 2,850, but based on usage, the per day average generation is 1710 kilowatt per hour, and per day loss due to non-usage of energy is 1,140 kilowatt per hour in this solar project. That means 40%. It's not actually wastage, it's energy not used. This means we produce a surplus. Because schools typically run, there's a pattern, the schools don't run 24 hours. They run from particular time so in the morning till afternoon, and for the rest of the time, these facilities are not used. But we keep producing this energy and we store this energy, but there is nowhere for it to go because there's no use for it. So actually, this surplus ends up being a loss. And per year loss due to this non-usage is almost 400,000 kilowatt hours. That's a lot from just one school, just one solar project. So I'll talk about it later, the issue connected to this. But also the carbon emission saving from January 2022, when we implemented this project, to November 2023 is 716 tons in this particular school. Going forward, there are some issues here, as I was mentioning, and some suggestions that we have here. Right now, for schools and all other buildings, there's an existence of a mandatory preliminary deposits to be made to the energy authorities, whichever it may be. These need to be reconsidered for schools willing to adopt renewable paths, which means to say if a school wants to implement solar, they should be exempted from certain mandatory deposits that you have to make to the energy authorities, because these deposits are very large deposits. The energy authorities can encourage solar energy adoption by introducing a mechanism for feeding surplus energy into the grid and for schools to receive credits against this. So there should be a mechanism, because I already showed that there is a surplus that one school produces. There are 1,200 or 1,300 plus schools in UAE. You can multiply that surplus of one school by this and see what is the surplus produced which is going as waste. So there should be a mechanism which is not in place now, and this is a policy level thing, only policymakers can do it, is this surplus, there should be a way for the surplus to go back into the grid and for the school to receive credits, or in some way the authorities can subsidize implementation of this solar project for schools. So that will encourage a lot of schools to adopt this. Otherwise, they might be, many might be hesitant because looking at these issues. For having green schools, one difficulty is that it requires quite large quantities of water, and if it is to be paid for, these it turns out to be quite significant amounts also. So we suggest that greater availability of free treated sewage water, which in some cases is possible. One of our schools recently got a connection for watering and irrigations, or securing water rate reductions and promotion of on-campus grey water recycling systems. This will also encourage although we've been doing it at our cost in the past 10 years. So these are big amounts of money that we are talking about just on irrigating and watering the trees that we have on our campuses. But if there are these incentives in place, these changes in policy, schools on a large scale will be able to adopt this agenda easily. So these are some hitches or difficulties Mr. Sainuddin was talking about. The impact we've been able to produce I'm talking only about our campuses and our students. We have 3 campuses. In our 3 campuses, we have around 2,272 trees, these are large trees, and 1,173 plus plants, smaller ones, at our 3 campuses. I was talking about locally grown produce that our students farm and harvest. In the past 6 years, 9,000 plus kgs of locally grown produce was harvested in school campuses. And typically we sell it on our campus also. Usually the customers are parents and we sell it to them, and the proceeds of this go to charity. And we have a yearly summer assignment program for our students, which is running for the past 6 years, where among other things, we always ask them to plant trees and saplings in their home countries whenever they go home. So as a result of that initiative, the summer assignment initiative, we have a series. Sometimes it's let's hear this summer, sometimes it's let's care this summer. It goes on like that. So as a result of that, 50,000 plus saplings were planted by our students in their home countries. And also as a part of our planting initiative, it should be April 30, 2019. There's a typo there. We achieved the largest distribution of saplings on a single day in a single venue, which also became a Guinness World Record. So this is just some elements of the kind of impact we've been able to produce, and we've got some recognition for our focus. Most recently, the Sharjah Sustainability Award in 2022. Some other sustainability actions. First schools in UAE to integrate farming. This is all, I've already mentioned this. First schools in UAE to publish a farming, or based on our farming experiences, we published a farming handbook for schools, and we distributed copies to schools, because what we want is that other schools, if they want to do this, they should know how to do it and what elements will be involved. Ongoing planting campaigns, and now, as I was mentioning, we initiated the road to net zero in one of our schools with a goal to make it a net zero school in the next 5 to 7 years. And I'm happy to say that we already have the interim report in place for this project, and we are moving into the second phase of this project. Yeah, this is what I was talking about. So the project, the Net Zero Road to Net Zero project, focuses on decarbonizing campus buildings, sustainable electrification, solar and EV use, enhancing the greening of the campus. Is already a green campus, but enhancing the greening of the campus, carbon capture, and enhancing circularity. These are some of the kind of themes or the actions that we need to take. And these are the phases: phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, 4, and 5. We've already, at the end of appraisal, analysis, and audit, I said I already have the interim report. It's with me. It's in place. And we are going into the next phase very soon, where we will have recommendations on how to achieve the goals we've already set. And then the implementations, followed by some feedback, and then lastly, documentation and submission to regulators for certification. This is what we intend to do with one of our schools. So it's a big focus now for us. And why we're doing it is because we want to show that it can be done. If it can be done by us, it can be done by others. And if it's done by one, it's easier for the others to do it subsequently, because you know what is the path. Sustainability actions, what are our future plans? Use of low carbon impact materials and processes to produce staff and student uniforms. I mentioned it, we are not only looking at campus and buildings, you're looking at things like uniform. Also, is something like I'm wearing today. This is indigo denim, hand spun, hand woven, very low carbon impact. So it's something that we are looking to do for our staff, and subsequently for our students. We have 13,000 plus students in our 3 campuses. So we're talking about a big number of students. And this is not only to, also to show that this can be done. These kinds of things can be done. Some of the fabrics we're looking at are Kala cotton, Patnulu, Eri silk. These are Indian handloom and fabrics, and some more. They're very low carbon, low impact on or carbon neutral crops that are mostly hand woven and use natural dyes. Encouraging the use of low carbon transport in school and elsewhere. We also intend to distribute 1,000 bicycles over the next 5 years to support deserving students in other parts of the world and encourage low carbon transport options. We have already initiated the use of EVs for transportation needs of school staff. And very important for behavioral change, we are in the process of framing sustainability policies for our schools to ensure behavioral changes associated with net zero are integrated in the school curriculum. That's our next thing. And then, this is our aspiration, is that we aspire Habitat Schools to be a model of a sustainable, eco-friendly schools for the MENA region. This will directly contribute to regional net zero goals. We are eager to collaborate with other institutions, authorities for further the sustainability agenda. And the last point, I want to say that I already mentioned that Habitat Schools, we are stakeholders. Our parents are parents from working class families. We have what may be called affordable schools. Our fee ranges from 5,080 per year, which translates to about $1,300 per year. So that's a fee range. So that imposes certain kind of limitations on a model you want to create. But despite that, because there was a vision, there was a commitment, we insisted that this is what we want to do, even if it means a certain investment, even if it means additional costs. We want to create this atmosphere for our students, and we want to give them this ambience. So that's my last point. So I end by thanking UNFCCC, the Global Innovation Hub. It's been an incredible platform for meeting people, meeting the right kind of people, the people with like-minded objectives in mind. Dr. Masamba, Nitin, Yasmin, they've all been very influential and helpful in this. I thank all of them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for that fascinating presentation. So I think we're running out of time, but I still want to open the floor for questions. And I wanted to say really quickly that I think this is the type of initiatives that we should be supporting. I mean, at the American University of Sharjah, we are supporting the path towards net zero. We're trying to also incorporate sustainable initiatives within our campus. And that is one of the beauties of it, that if we have the right people and the right audience to be able to support these initiatives, that's certainly what we need to do. So I take from this session that we've talked a lot about the idea of empowering empowering youth, but also changing our mindset and being supported by the policies. And I think that is something that is so important. I mean, the Minister of Climate Change and Environment, they're always supporting these initiatives. And I know that EAD, the Environment Agency of Abu Dhabi, is also they're doing the Sustainable Campus Initiative where they're supporting schools, etc. So I want to hear from you. Are there any questions for any of our amazing panelists for today? Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this really interesting panel today. My name's Kate Cubley and I'm from England, and I'm a student at De Montfort, Leicester. We're one of just 17 global SDG schools in the world. We are already incorporating some of this in Leicester, but I'm thinking about our campus here in Dubai. Would there be potential to collaborate with other educational institutions in the MENA region?
Yeah, that's what the line says there.
Yeah.
We are eager to collaborate.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think also at the academic level, we are really trying to reach out to other institutions. And right now, there is the Climate University Network, which was actually created by the Environment Agency of Abu Dhabi, as well as we have our UAE Climate Change Research Network. And we are looking into that. We're looking into collaborations, and we're always open to it. So my suggestion it is to reach out, and then when we finish this, I can give you the contact. But yeah, we're certainly open to these collaborations. Do we have any? Yeah.
Thank you very much, and this has been extremely interesting, and I congratulate all of you for highlighting the importance of education in climate change. If you have not looked at Article 12 of the Paris Agreement, specifically refers to education and climate empowerment. So it's extremely central and very, very important. My point is, it's only through education at the grassroots level, at the early stages, we can bring societal change in countries, in societies, in communities and businesses. So what you need to do is to continue what you're doing, but at the same time, expand that network and convey the importance of education to other institutions and raise the voice as hard and as loud as possible. So I wish you all the very best, and it's been excellent listening to you. Thank you.
Thank you. We really appreciate it. All right, so I think with that, I would like to thank our panelists for today. Certainly, it has been a beautiful panel and an amazing experience, and thank you so much for what you're doing, and certainly you'll continue doing so. Thank you to all of you, and have a lovely day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So with this, I guess we have come to the end